our practitioner of the day, Robert Brown, who's going to do our opening prayer and share a quote and a little centering. Hi, Robert.
Howdy. I thought I needed no introduction. All right. Good morning, everyone. I invite you all to close your eyes, get centered, take a deep centering breath, and know with me that there is only one, that God is all, God is everything. God created everything out of itself, and we are all individual manifestations of God. Everything we see is God. And I give great thanks for this. I give great thanks for our oneness with God, our oneness with each other, our oneness with the universe. I give great thanks for this morning, this beautiful, beautiful
I'm going to be really busy.
The best day.
Quarter after, and then I'll call you back if you want to talk then, or wait until 11.
Jim, you need to mute, please.
I give great thanks for all of these things. I give great thanks for all the gifts that come into our lives, all the blessings. And one of the major blessings is this chance to be together every Sunday morning, to know our oneness and to share our oneness. So I release my words into the law of mind, knowing they are so, and together we say, so it is. And for the quote today, I picked one of my faves because, as you all know, I'm a retired lawyer, and Thomas Troward was in the legal profession as well. He was a colonial judge in India. And one of the people upon whom Ernest Holmes relied very heavily in creating science of mind and spirit. So Troward said, relying on the maxim that principle is not bound by precedent, we should not limit our expectations of the future. And if our speculations lead us to the conclusion that we have reached a point where we are not only able, but also required by the law of our own being to take a more active part in our personal evolution than heretofore, this discovery will afford us a new outlook upon life and widen our horizon with fresh interests and brightening hopes. And the topic of Michelle's talk this morning is, this too is God. And I use this principle is not bound by precedent as a sign off on my emails. Because we shouldn't look to the past to form our present. Our principles are now, not in the past, not in the future. The past is a mystery, or the past is history, and the future is a mystery. And the present is where we live, breathe, and have our being in God. So let's move on to this month's affirmation. But before we do so, let's just take about a minute to go within, close our eyes, be at peace, and touch God within us. Reach out and touch God within us. Say hello to Spirit. Say, welcome, Spirit. I love being within you. I love that you act in me and through me and as me. as we come out of our moment of silence, let's know that everything we see, everything that we hear, everything that we taste, everything that we smell, it's all God, because everything is God. So let's read together May's affirmation. And you guys stay muted because we don't want to hear a cacophony of voices. With unshakable confidence, I participate fully and freely in the adventure of life. I am an ambassador of revolutionary love. I release my old story and embrace the new inspired vision of my life. The great I am within me guides and supports me. I am one with the love and the law of infinite spirit, and so it is. And the line, I am an ambassador of universal love, is similar to something that Troward says, which is, we are divine distributors. We're divine distributors of that universal love and that universal peace. And now we turn it over to Maestro Richard.
Yes, we do. Let me get it up for us.
Here's a song called Water by Daniel Nahman. Oh, I've seen my share of struggle when I thought that I knew best. When I sailed through a storm instead of stopping to rest. And it always seemed the hardest when I made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. I wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head straight into the wind? He doesn't pick a fight, he spreads his wings and he just gives in. And in the end he always makes it home just fine, 'cause he knows that every storm subsides. I wanna be like water coming down the mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. I wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I'll let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know where this river's meant to go. I have railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I've never won, for the heartache that I've felt. But it always seems when I let go of expectations and regret, life has plenty of surprises for me yet. I wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. I wanna be like water, heading uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Oh, I want to be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. I want to be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I am bound for the sea. Bound for the sea.
I am bound for the sea. Love that. Oh, let's see. I'm going to have to turn that off. There we go. Thank you, Richard. I invited Richard to sing that song for us, and shortly you'll understand why. So, can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Okay. Okay, so good morning again, and welcome to the online service of One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And this morning, we continue with this month's theme, which, as I'm sure you know by now, is Holy, Holy Uprising. And I was looking for Holmes' quote in the Science of Mind text that I thought would help us understand this theme, this idea of a holy, holy uprising. And I did find one, and I want to share that with you. So let me share this quote. And this is from, as I said, the Science of Mind text on page 439. Holmes writes, and of Holmes, of course, I'm sure everyone knows, is the founder of Science of Mind. He wrote, accepting the lessons and experiences of the past, which reminded when Robert did his quote, I thought, oh yes, I'm talking about the past as well. Accepting the lessons and experiences of the past and taking the best from everything, we should press boldly forward, looking ever for the truth and ever ascending higher and higher into the heavens of reality. I love that. Into the heavens of reality. You know, and Holmes is using the idea of heaven as an awareness of our true nature, in our oneness with God. A holy, holy uprising is an experience, an expansion of our definition of God, that we include everything that we see and feel and are. You know, and we tend to use words like ascending higher and deeper when it comes to the expansion of consciousness, because it feels that way when when our awareness expands to include everything in our experience. And we begin to see all of the world from that larger perspective, which leads us to today's message, which is this too is God, as Robert suggested when he was giving his prayer. And it invites us to expand our thinking to include everything that has come before and everything we see, think, and experience right now, no matter what it looks like, into our understanding, our experience of God, spirit, whatever it is that we call that presence, that divine presence that is within us. So if you receive my weekly e-newsletter, you probably saw that right at the top of this week's newsletter, I put this lovely photo of a rainbow arching across the beautiful blue sky. And then right under that, I added a photo of a nice big pile of compost. Because as we love to say in Science of Mind, it's all good and it's all God. The rainbows and the compost. And everything we encounter in life is an expression of the divine, of the one. It can't be anything else. Ernest Holmes, again, our founder, as I said, and you probably all know by now, wrote that, I have another, I don't think I'm going to show that. I'm just going to read the quote this time. Then I don't have to navigate. He wrote, God is the giver and the sustainer of human life and expression. And here it is. This is the part I wanted to really emphasize. God is all there is. God is substance and supply. And that doesn't sound like he left anything out. You know, what would all that is leave out? Nothing. However, I have to say that there are certainly days when I am challenged to believe that God is all there is, or that God is even for me. It doesn't always feel like that. But in my moments of deep contemplation and that feeling of connection with the divine within me, I realize that if God is anything, God must be everything. Science of Mind teaches, and I believe that it's true, that we do not live in a dualistic universe, that there is God and something else. Everything is an expression of the one, which means that everything, not just some things, show up to guide and support and expand us. What comes our way, even if it's not immediately obvious to us, supports us. I like to say God's got our back. But again, I have to admit that sometimes I really have to look hard to find that good, even when I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Does that ever happen to you? Sometimes you really have to dig deep to see the blessing in a situation. You know those times that I'm talking about, right? When something happens that we're not expecting, an illness, a pandemic, a car accident, a lost job, something that we didn't see coming, you know, and if you're anything like me, our first response is often to panic, you know, to react with fear and worry and, oh my gosh, now what kind of reaction? And I've been working for several decades not to react from fear, but to respond from a more centered and non-reactive mind and heart. And I'm still working on it. I'm still a work in progress, but fortunately, my goal is not to be perfect, but to be better than I was yesterday. And if I'm not, that's okay too. I'm constantly moving myself into a deeper awareness so that when those things come, I can handle them in a more trusting way, to know that God really does have my back and that everything is showing up for my greater growth, for my greater expansion. So I asked Richard to play that song, Daniel Nahman's song, Water, to remind us to relax like water when things come our way. You know, water is a wonderful metaphor for the flow of spirit, to be able to flow with life as it shows up in front of us. Did you listen to the lyrics? I want to be like water coming down the mountain, into the shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. I want to be like water, head up, hill no more. I am bound for the sea. Water calls to mind the idea of non-resistance, flowing into the sea of divine consciousness. Water is such a wonderful teacher for how to embrace life as it comes, and yet to have the courage, the trust to continue to flow, even when there are obstacles in our path. You know, Nahman's song goes on to say, but it always seems when I let go of expectation and regret, life has plenty of surprises for me yet. Want to be like water. Oh, I love that idea. And while water flows easily and naturally, always finding the path of non-resistance, it's also a very powerful force. It carves stone. Deep canyons are created from the steady and consistent flow of water. You know, the ancient writings of the master Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching tells us that, let me read it so I don't get it wrong. Nothing in the world is as soft and flexible as water. Yet for dismantling the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. I want to be like water. You know, as I was thinking about the power of water, another song came to mind. And it's a wonderful old gospel song, and I'm sure that you have heard it at one time or another. It's called Wade in the Water. Richie's going to play a couple of bars for us. Oh. Wade in the water. Wade. So the lyrics are wade in the water, wade in the water, children, kids sing it. Wade in the water, God's gonna trouble the water. That's the line right there. God's gonna trouble the water. So when that song came up for me, I had to ask, why would God trouble the water? So I did a little research. Whenever something comes up, I don't know what I did before Google. I'm so grateful for Google. But it turns out that the song is actually based on a biblical passage. It's from John 5:4. And it's set at the site of one of Jesus's first miracles by the pool of Bethesda, which interestingly enough means house of kindness. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the passage says that it was here by the pool of Bethesda that Jesus healed a man who had been sick for 38 years. So I have a quote. Let me get it up. I've got this great quote from the passage. Let me find it. I don't always like to pull up the quotes because it takes a minute and it's a little distracting. That was the last one. And there was Lao Tzu. And here's the passage from John. It says, for an angel of God went down at a certain time to the baptismal pool and stirred up the water. And here's the part that I really think is important. And whoever went in first after the stirring of the water was healed of any disease. Was healed of any disease. So whoever went in after the water was troubled was healed. That's a powerful metaphor for us here. It's in the stirring up or the troubling of the waters that people are healed. It's in the unexpected stirring up of our consciousness that gets our attention. The trouble gives us an opportunity for change and transformation. It's when life is stirred up that we stop and we take a deeper look at our lives. It's then that we tend to stop and look deeply into how things got to be the way they are anyway. You know, what beliefs do I hold? What is manifesting in my life? Who do I believe I am? It's in the trouble that we begin to dig deep and to look at some of these deep rooted patterns and beliefs that are creating our lives, that are troubling the water. So let's face it, it doesn't take much for us to get stuck in habits and patterns and of thinking and feeling and being that have long outlived their usefulness. And yet we continue to hang on to them because, you know, that's the way it's always been. You ever been in a rut? I just realized this morning, and this is a simple little nothing, but it really hit me. I was getting the coffee cup down, and I realized that, you know, I have this new kitchen, which I love, thank you, God. And I have this little coffee station. I have my coffee pot there, and then inside all the coffees and teas and everything. And the next shelf is a shelf full of mugs. There's like 20 mugs in there. And then on the next shelf are things that I use all the time. My measuring cups, a bunch of other things. And every time I want to get to that third shelf, I have to get the stool out and get up there. And it suddenly dawned on me, why do I have those up there? I use 2 coffee cups. That's it. No more. I could move all the other coffee cups off and put everything that I use every day almost on that second shelf. And I realized because that's the way I had always done it. You know, I always use it that way. And you know, that's a kind of a silly little example, but it's true. One little adjustment makes things so much easier. That has outlived its usefulness for me. I don't live in a family with 7 kids and 2 adults anymore. Now it's just me and my husband. And one little tweak and life changes. How interesting is that? So I have this other little fact. I just read this and I thought, oh, I got to share that. Do you know why train tracks are the width they are? I just read this. It's because train cars were designed to be the same width as horse-drawn carriages. which in turn were designed to fit the ruts created by ancient Roman chariots. Literal ruts, literal ruts. We over centuries, I was going to say decades, but it's centuries, we stayed in the same literal ruts. How funny are we as human beings? And another interesting fact, the letters and the symbols on the computer keyboard are arranged the way they are because typewriters were first developed, when they were first developed, early typists pounded the keys so fast and so hard that the machines would get jammed. So they developed a more difficult keyboard in 1873 to slow the pace of the typists down so the typewriters wouldn't jam. Our lives are so full of activities that have more to do with habit than with relevance and effectiveness. But when the waters get troubled, we tend to revisit, rethink, innovate, and change. We're given the opportunity to change. You know, life gets our attention when the waters get troubled. So, you know, the task for us then is to look at our lives and see what's relevant for us and see what isn't relevant for us anymore. You know, and see what it is that is holding us back from stepping into something new, stepping into that new yet to be. You know, is there something in your life, some area that you have come to believe is beyond the touch of change or transformation? Maybe it's something simple like the way you do your hair or the way you arrange your coffee cups in the cupboard. Or maybe it's something like repairing an injured relationship that you haven't wanted to look at, or one that you've really had a longing to repair, but it's painful and it seems like it's easier just to leave it alone. Or maybe it's changing careers or moving to a new area, or maybe it's going back to school, or maybe it's that something that has always seemed off limits to you for change. But what if it isn't? What if it isn't off limits? What if everything that we think is beyond the limit of change is actually ripe for change? You know, look at your life. Where do the waters seem to get troubled pretty often? You know, where do things get a little ruffled up? Where do they not flow like water? Those stuck places, you know, that seem off limits, but are really ripe for change. Maybe it's something as simple as I said, as rearranging your cupboards, or maybe it's something as significant and as deep as telling your partner something that's been difficult to disclose, but you know it would bring you closer. You know, have you ever seen that? You probably have, that diagram for the comfort zone. It's kind of funny. Let me share it with you. You've probably seen it before. Here, let me get it up. It's a funny little thing. Here it is. Have you seen this before? Your comfort zone and where the magic happens. You know, nothing new generally comes out of the comfort zone. But when we move out, when we get into the troubled waters, that's where the magic tends to happen. That's where things really get stirred up and we find change. I love that. Outside the comfort zone. And it's that trouble that gets our attention so that we continue to expand. But we don't have to wait for trouble to change. We know exactly what to do. We're metaphysicians. We practice the science of mind philosophy, and it teaches us that we don't have to let life happen to us, that we can consciously choose to direct and change our life, to expand and open ourselves up to the greater good that is always available, and still be able to greet those unexpected events in life that will surely come. Who saw a pandemic coming? Not me. And we can greet them with a deeper trust that God truly is all there is. We are these creative beings and we're designed for exploration and innovation. We thrive when we're standing in the flow of the divine that is living its life through us, when we're in that easy, gentle flow and momentum of the water. And while it's nice to be in the comfort zone once in a while, we all like to kick our feet up and watch annoying TV once in a while. that isn't where life changes. And our nature is to create, because that is the nature of the divine. And we are the divine in expression. And here's another lesson from the story of the troubled waters. When the waters are troubled on the surface, when you go down deeper into the body of water, whatever it is, a pool, an ocean, a lake, it becomes much calmer, much more still and peaceful. There can be trouble. There can be a raging storm on the surface, and it can be safe and peaceful down below. There's that image again of going deeper, expanding, ascending, going deeper, connecting with that power that is already within us. We're in the deep center of the divine within us. We can traverse the troubled waters with a real sense of safety and a foundation of trust. You know we can go deep into the well, the source of the water itself, and find peace. And our spiritual practices are the pump that brings that water from the deep up. We get that water up to the surface so that we can use it in our life. Our spiritual practices are the pump, or maybe it's just a bucket on a rope. It doesn't matter what our spiritual practices is. I love that image as well. We go down deep and we take that source of the deep peace, calm, love. We did that in our meditation before the Sunday service today. We went deep down to find those attributes of the divine love and all of its relatives. So when we look around the world today, it's easy to spot the trouble. You know, temperatures are rising, both emotionally and ecologically because of climate change. And we sometimes feel challenged by the troubled waters of our times, and moving into that still, calm water of the spirit within us helps us to maintain a sense of personal balance and a sense of optimism, rather than sinking into the worry. And even if I watch the news too much, even despair, because that is just the catastrophizing of what has already manifest. But we know where to go to create a new vision for our future, to create a world that works for everyone. You know, I believe we do a couple of things. First, we take the deep dive down into the well of our inner source. We nurture ourselves with its life force, and we begin to create from this connection to the flow of life. And then when the troubled waters show up, we can embrace them without fear. We're empowered by the very nature of who we are and what we find at the depth of our being. And I believe to bring what is deep within us to the surface and share it with the world is our purpose. That's why we're here. And I'm reminded of yet another Holmes quote. And this one, I know I share often, but I share it often because I think its truth and its simplicity speaks to all of our lives. So I'm going to share it with you too. Let me get up my quote page. Here we go. We've got the comfort zone up here. Let me move it out of the way. And this one I know you've heard from me because I share it all the time, like I said. Let's take a nice deep breath. The original life is infinite. It is good. It is filled with peace. It is of the essence of purity. It is law. It is life. It is in us, in that inner sanctuary of our own nature, hidden perhaps from objective gaze, nestles the seed perfection. In our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon the very conditions from which we suffer. Here's my favorite line. I know you've heard me quote it before. We are bound because we are first free. The power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can free us. We are bound because we are first free. The power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can set us free. That just fills me with this sense of optimism and hope and a knowing that that power is always available to me. And if I am in the troubled waters, it is because I have created it myself and that I can move through it. Oh, I'm going to cry. When I think of people that have weathered severe troubled waters, I think of people like Nelson Mandela, who spent 26 years in a prison in South Africa. And then, as we all know, he went on to become that country's president. Or Immaculée Ilibisigaza, I always stumble over her name, who I shared her story last week. She survived the Rwandan Holocaust. She and 7 other women spent 91 days in a 3x4 bathroom, and she found her strength in her deep connection to spirit. She recited the Lord's Prayer until it became a mantra for her and threw her into the depth of her divinity. Or the young girl who was shot in the head for wanting to go to school, Malalia, who is now 20 years old, and she's doing humanitarian work for the rights of young girls and women. And I could go on and on and on. There are so many wonderful examples of people who have dug into the depth of their soul to find that stability, to manage the troubled waters. I bet you have a story of your own. I know I have many of mine. We have to ask ourselves, though, to remind ourselves when we're in the midst of the trouble, where is my strength and how do I get there? And the answer to that question applies to every single one of us exactly the same. We go within and we find the strength of life of God within ourselves. The same strength that is within me is within you. And not only do all of these examples, all of these people, all of us find our strength to look for the good in ourselves, but we also find the good in all of humanity. When we find it in ourselves, it's so easy to see it in others. It's so easy, as Immaculée did, to forgive our enemies and truly forgive them. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Jesus said that on the cross. We go within and we find the center of life and the power of that seed perfection. I always laugh at that, the seed perfection, because when I was growing up Catholic, I remember always learning about original sin, and it never sit right with me. And when I read that line about the seed perfection from Ernest Holmes, I said, that's it. It's the seed perfection that I have within me and within you. So this week, my invitation to you is to move out of your comfort zone by just doing a few things that are different. They don't have to be dramatic. They could be very, very simple. Call an old friend that you haven't talked to in a long time, but you just love and you would love to connect with. Volunteer. See a practitioner. How many of you have done that lately? How many of you reached out and called a practitioner to support you in something that you would like to move past? Do something that moves you outside that comfort zone. Forgive yourself for some old error that you made and you're still punishing yourself for it. Create a new way to get the water out of the well, some new spiritual practice. Be like water, flowing easily. Live your life by being like water and practicing non-resistance. Come to one of our evening classes. Come to Monday night. And we're doing the 12 steps. Come to Tuesday where we do spiritual practice, or Wednesday where we're exploring the art of uncertainty. Come to a community where like-minded people are discussing these rich topics. Every time you're tempted to make an assumption or a judgment, stop and bless that person instead. Bless yourself several times a day. Do something out of the ordinary. A simple shift can make a huge, huge difference in your life. Drive to the grocery store different. It doesn't matter. So let's take a deep breath. Sometimes I like to read the Meditations of Self-Help near the back of the Science of Mind text. Do you ever read those? There's tons of them, and they address every possible troubled waters that you could have in your life. And I ran across this one the other day that speaks to the idea that in the depth of our being is a safety and a security in spirit that can never be shaken. And in developing our connection with this, we can weather any troubled waters that come our way. So I'd like to end, usually I do a spiritual mind treatment, but I'd like to end with this meditation from Ernest Holmes. It's on page, if you want to look it up later, it's on page 525, and it's entitled Peace, Poise, and Power. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see it with me. I just love it. So, and there's the last quote I did. Here, let me get the new one out. Ah, where is it? Oh, darn. For some reason, I don't have it. I apologize. I'm just going to have to read it to you. You can look it up afterwards. So here's how it goes. I've got it on here. Fortunately, I wrote it down. I guess I've neglected to make that slide. Oh, well. So here it is. Let's take a deep breath. Peace, poise, and power are within me, for they are the witnesses of the inner spirit of all truth, love, and wisdom. I am at peace within me, and all about responds to the great calm of the inner soul, which knows its rightful place in the all good. Power is born from within me and passes into my experience without effort or labor. Oh, let's listen to that line. I'm going to read it one more time, if I can find it. Power is born from within me and passes into my experience without effort or labor. I rest in security and peace, for the inner light shines forth and illumines the way. I'm going to read it one more time because I want it to be a little bit more of a flow, and I want us to really hear it. Peace, poise, and power are within me, for they are the witnesses of the inner spirit of all truth, love, and wisdom. I am at peace within me, and all about responds to the great calm of the inner soul, which knows its rightful place in the all good. Power is born from within me and passes into my experience without effort or labor. I rest in security and peace, for the inner light shines forth and illumines the way. And so it is. Oh, well, now it is time for another spiritual practice that we do every week. We do sacred giving. And if you are giving a financial gift to our center, as I tell you every week, there are several ways in which you can do that. We, let's see, here we go. You can give on Venmo or Tithely, or Jim Massapist is our assistant treasurer, and you can send him a snail mail check. And I want us to remember that as we give, we receive. And that when we give money, we get money in return. We give our time and talent returns to us multiplied. And that's a spiritual practice and a spiritual principle that we teach in this philosophy, and actually a lot of spiritual traditions do. It's just the law of life. So I invite you to say the affirmation on the screen. I do have that one with me. And it's, I recognize that my gift is an instrument of the energy and love of God. As it flows from me, it uplifts and advances all life, including mine. I give and receive joyously. I am so grateful. And so it is. Thank you, Richard. Oh, so Leslie, do we have any announcements?
Wednesday evening is our book discussion group, and that's being facilitated by Maureen Bishop, and she's covering the book, The Art of Uncertainty. And Maureen, you want to tell us where we are with that book?
Go on, let me grab the book. Go to someone else. Let me grab it.
Okay. Monday evening is our spiritual metaphysical journey into the 12 steps. And I believe it's step number I think
Seven.
it's 7 that we are going to be covering.
But we review as we go along. We backtrack and we talk about, what's come before. But this week we're looking at step 7.
And that's facilitated by Reverend Michelle. And that begins at 6:30 on Zoom. And then Tuesday evening is our spiritual inoculation group. And Reverend Michelle is covering part 2 of forgiveness as a means for transformation. Next Sunday after the service, we will be holding our annual meeting, at which time we will be voting for 2 board people. If you are interested in running for the board and have not already spoken to Reverend Michelle, please do so. She is the contact for you. And this is a time where you'll find out what's been going on with your board this past year. Okay.
So I'll make sure we don't go long in our service so that we'll have plenty of time to do our meeting. Won't take up your entire Sunday.
Lisa, if you will please give us a benediction.
Oh, wait, Maureen's going to talk about
That's right.
This is the book by Dennis Merritt Jones. We're at the end of the book, the last 2 chapters. We're going to be talking about intention and attention. What do you put your attention on? And the last chapter is remember who we are, where we are, and why we are. So these 2 chapters are going to talk about mindfulness and really looking at your thought process. Thanks.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay, Lisa, we are ready for our benediction.
Okay. Well, if we could all pull ourselves together into one space and take a nice deep breath to recenter into that seed self, that inner space where the perfection lives, that comes through us, comes from spirit through us into the world. And so I am so grateful and thankful for us having the opportunity to be together this morning, and for the wise words from Reverend Michelle and the guidance that can carry us through the week as we remember the fact that we are in fact all one, and that we have an individualized expression of that spirit that is one. And so our purpose is to use that spirit self that we have to be in the world and to flow like water and to give that which we have to give from the depths that are inside of us in terms of our love for the other people who come across our path and for ourselves, and for allowing us to keep growing and to keep moving forward out of habit into the magic of the spirit and what we can do with it. And I'm so grateful to know that this is the truth and that we have this opportunity together to consciously move the world forward. And so I release my word into the law by saying, and so it is.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
And our closing song is Grateful. So, and I'm going to play Richard's video. Here we go.
We are all grateful for so many things. Grateful for the morning, grateful for the sunlight on my face, grateful for the feeling, grateful for the knowing, grateful for the love that's in this place, grateful for believing that God is all there is. God is all there is. God is all there is.
Thank you for that, Richard. There we go. That was lovely. Thank you. I love that song. So, anybody have anything they'd like to say, talk about, share, whatever you want to do? Morgan, looks like Morgan does.